Let's start with the easiest level.
Tier F, dead within 24 hours. You open your eyes, no roads, no people. Nothing but wind, dry grass, and a sky that has never seen a city. And your brain does what a modern human brain always does in an unscripted situation. It panics, then improvises a plan. Go find people. Walk toward the sunset. Drink from that puddle that looks fine. Sleep out in the open grass for some air. Every one of those decisions makes sense. Every one of them could kill you before sunrise. Tier F isn't the tier for stupid people. It's the tier for normal people. People who've never needed to know the difference between drinkable water and water laced with leptospirobacteria. 65% of modern humans start here. The question is how you get out. Tier E, the lucky first night. You survived the first night, not because you're good, because you're lucky. The spot you slept in just happened to have rocks blocking the wind. A wolf just happened to walk the other way. That puddle just happened to be bacteria-free. Luck isn't a skill. And out here, luck has a very short shelf life. Tier E is the most dangerous tier. Not because you're weak, but because you think you're doing it right. You survive night one, and your brain logs it as a win. Day 2, you repeat the exact same thing. Day 3, the environment changes, but you don't know how to read those changes. True survival isn't something you pull off once. It's something you can repeat, and Tier E is not repeatable. About 20% of people stall at this tier, not because they give up, but because they don't even realize they're stuck. Tier D. Surviving a few days. You're starting to read the environment. Not much, but enough to not drop dead immediately. You know to walk downhill to find water. You know to stay away from anything too brightly colored. You know to sleep near rocks, not out in an open field. These aren't survival skills. This is the bare minimum instinct the human body evolved to have over 200,000 years. The problem is you stop there. Day 1, you find water. Day 2, you eat a few things that aren't toxic. Day 3, your body starts demanding real calories, not wild berries, not roots, protein, fats, enough thermal energy to keep your brain firing in the evening cold. And you don't have fire. This is the limit of Tier D. It's not about willpower. It's not about intelligence. It's a specific physical skill you never needed to learn because your house has an induction stove. No fire, you can't cook food. No cooked food, you can't retain body heat. No body heat, and from day 5 onward, you're on a ticking clock. Roughly 10% of modern humans fall into this tier. Smart enough to live for a few days, but lacking the skills to survive any longer. Tier C, true survival. This is the tier where everything changes. Not because you're stronger, because you have fire. And fire isn't just about heat. Fire is the boundary line between humans and everything else out there in the dark. But making fire with friction isn't something you master from a 10-minute YouTube tutorial. It requires the right kind of wood, dry, porous, soft enough to create an ember through friction without burning up too fast. In the Fertile Crescent right now, dry willow and fig wood are your best bets. You need to know that before the sun goes down, not after. Once you have fire, a chain reaction starts. You can cook small game, lizards, insects, bird eggs. Enough protein to keep your brain from slowly shutting down. You can fend off small predators at night. You can survive not just for days, but for weeks. Tier C isn't the peak, but this is the first time you stop just reacting to the environment and start controlling a small piece of it. That is the difference between staying alive and truly surviving. Only about 3.5% of modern people reach this tier, and most of them have actually practiced beforehand. Tier B, the semi-pro caveman. You've stopped counting the days. That's the first sign you've crossed the survival threshold. When your brain stops asking, will I live to see tomorrow? And starts asking, what do I need for next week? Tier B is the tier of systems. You aren't hunting because you're starving. You're setting traps because you know a rabbit uses that exact game trail every morning. Because you can read the footprints, the flattened grass, the habits of an animal you've watched long enough to predict. This is where animal behavioral science becomes a practical survival skill. You also start picking your shelter based on logic, not instinct. Terrain that blocks the northeast wind, close enough to water but out of the flood zone, with a wide line of sight to spot danger from afar. These criteria aren't random. They're the result of observing the environment long enough to understand it has its own rhythm. The environment is no longer something you just endure, it's something you read. About 1.2% of modern humans can reach this tier, mostly those who have spent actual time in the wild, not just watched videos about it. Tier A, blending in. Here's something Tier F. People never live long enough to learn. No one in 10,000 BCE survived alone. Not by choice, by design. A band of 25 people was the minimum viable unit for survival in this environment. One person tracks the herd, one person watches the fire overnight, one person knows which plants are safe this season. You can't run all of that solo. The math doesn't work. So at Tier A, the skill isn't physical, it's social. Joining a band in the Neolithic wasn't like introducing yourself at a party. These groups had seen strangers before, and most of those encounters ended badly. You approach upwind so they smell you before they see you. You make noise while walking so you don't look like a predator. You stop at the edge of the firelight and wait. Not because it's polite, because crossing that line uninvited is how you get a spear in your chest. Once inside, you don't perform. You observe. Who makes decisions when things go wrong? Not who talks the most, but who people look at when something moves in the dark. Where food gets distributed and in what order. Who the group protects first. That's your entry point. Not strength, not cleverness. Situational awareness of people, not just terrain. Only about 0.25% of modern people would reach this tier, because reading a room is harder than reading a landscape. Tier S, game changer. Everyone below this tier was playing the game. Tier S is the only tier where you start rewriting the rules. Here's what separates Tier S from everyone else. Modern knowledge, not survival skills. Those got you to Tier A. What gets you to Tier S is knowing things that won't be discovered for another 5,000 years. Boiling water before drinking it. The entire band loses people every season to waterborne illness, and nobody knows why. You do. That one behavior, consistently applied, cuts the group's mortality rate in ways that look like magic to everyone watching. Preserving food with salt and smoke in the right combination. Not just drying it, but actually extending shelf life through winter. Knowing that wounds need to be cleaned, not just covered. Understanding that rotating where you hunt gives the prey population time to recover instead of collapsing it. None of this requires advanced technology. It requires applied knowledge that exists in your head right now. The compounding effect is staggering. A band that loses fewer people to preventable deaths, hunts more efficiently, and eats through winter without starvation doesn't just survive. It outcompetes every other group in the region within a single generation. You didn't just survive the Neolithic. You walked in with 12,000 years of accumulated human knowledge, and nobody saw you coming. Less than 0.05% of people reach this tier. The question was never whether you'd survive. It was always how much you'd change things on the way out.